In this fifth webinar, we're going to take a very brief look at the legal prose, what it's for, and how it's manifested within the contract. So this is the motivation for why the legal prose is included. So whilst the contract code is a useful and powerful means to verify whether a transaction is correct or valid or not, it can't handle everything. It can't handle all real-world events. If there's a complex dispute or any kind of arbitration, then we'd probably need to defer to the existing legal or judicial system to resolve those types of conflicts. And there have been cases demonstrated with existing cryptocurrency or cryptographic systems such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, whereby if there were some kind of legal override, then it would provide those involved with more assurance as to the safety of their funds, for instance. Whereas obviously with Corda, as it's a permissioned distributed ledger, all the participants are bound by legal agreements or networking agreements, and the services that are offered on that network are done so via service level agreements. And of course, we can default to these agreements as and when required. Likewise, with the contracts that are used to govern how states evolve over time on the ledger, this contract code can have some backup legal prose, which can aid in the resolution of disputes if and when required. So what we're not saying is code is law. We're definitely not subscribing to that view. So how does it actually work? So the legal prose feature in Corda is actually still under implementation, but you can implement it at the moment, but we haven't got much scaffolding or support for it at present. So what is the legal prose? So it's defined as a template and some parameters, and you can think of the template as some blueprints for a contract. So you can imagine a legal agreement with some placeholders for values such as lender, borrower, amount, etc. And you can use these blueprints to create an instance of a contract. And when you create an instance of a contract, you provide the blueprint some values for the placeholders or the variables for the lender and the borrower and the amount, for instance. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating an instance of this contract blueprint with some parameters that you're specifying. Then what you can do with these two documents, you can hash them, concatenate them together, hash the result, and put the reference inside the contract itself. And what you can also do is store the actual legal prose and parameters as an attachment within the transaction. We're going to talk a bit more about attachments in subsequent webinars, but for now you can view an attachment as just an arbitrary file which you can attach to a transaction. And it just so happens that this file could take the form of some legal prose defined by a template and some parameters. So typically the legal prose would remain constant for the duration of a state's life cycle unless all of the parties or the participants involved in that state opted to novate the legal agreement and provide a new one. So how does it work? This is just a depiction of what I've just mentioned on the previous slide. So you have a legal prose template that has some placeholders, borrower, lender, amount, date, rate, period, for instance. And then you have some parameters, and you would likely hash both of these documents, concatenate the hashes, and then take the hash of that and include that as the legal prose reference. Then of course you can include these documents themselves as attachments, or you can provide a link to them and you can have the documents stored on some content delivery network somewhere else. So just to recap very quickly, legal prose is referenced within the contracts and can be relied upon when the contract code is insufficient. So there might be a couple of times, as I mentioned, where you can't resolve a dispute via the supplied contract code. Therefore, you would default to the legal prose, which is referenced within the contract. So that's it for legal prose. It's a very short section. Next, we'll look at commands.